Hello and welcome to a new episode of the BIMvoice podcast. Today we have with us Mark-Felix Rettberg, who is a BIM implementation expert in Germany. Welcome, Mark-Felix.
Hi, Petru.
How are you doing? It's so nice to have you here.
Thank you.
Please introduce yourself.
Yes, I'm a construction engineer and BIM implementation expert, what you said already. I worked for the last 15 years implementing BIM in different companies and organizations like architectural offices, engineering offices and companies, but also on the construction side with contractors. I was working for PIAB, I was working for Implenia, and for the last couple of years, I was focusing on larger organizations implementing BIM, developing BIM strategies, implementing BIM in their business model. And this is what I do right now. Since 2018, I'm working from Germany. And the company Rettberg Consulting is focusing actually on those organizations in the construction industry to help them do the step towards the AEC 4.0.
Okay, I understand. There is a handful there. There are so many things we can talk about. Is your company a one-man show or you have more employees?
We are actually three. So it's me as the BIM implementation expert. We have David, who's actually a psychologist in the team, who's focusing on the psychology of change, to actually combine change management with the change in the industry to get change management to work more efficiently. We have Ruth. She's the office manager, managing the offices in Oslo, here in Germany. We have a couple of network friends and networks, colleagues, which we actually pull into our projects when we need them. From modeling point of perspective, quality checking of coordination projects, and so on.
Okay, I understand. And is this office based in Germany or Norway or you from other places?
Yeah, we have an office in Norway, in Oslo, actually in the Oscarsgate. And we have the office here in Germany, nearby Frankfurt.
Okay. Psychologist. That is a new one. It's the first time I'm hearing about this, and I must ask you more about this because that's huge. Actually, I think you've seen like a X-ray exactly to the worst pain we have, like this
And that is
the change, the cultural change that is so difficult to do anything about it. I see that as the biggest challenge actually.
It is
to approach and to adopt BIM.
Yeah.
Can you give some details about how did you come to this realization and how are you using this?
Of course. When I started out in 2005, actually doing CAD trainings, it was all about the technology, right? It was something like giving AutoCAD courses, giving Revit courses, and so on. And from that point of view, it was more or less like a technology adoption. You said, okay, this is the software, these are the enabling courses, and afterwards you had supported them, and then they used it in their daily business. With BIM, it's different. You have a new tool like Revit, ArchiCAD, or whatever, and you also change the processes. So you need to focus on that one. So it's not just technology and processes. So when you start digging in and start to read about change management, it comes down to the public to the model that you talk about, people, process, technology frameworks, right? You need to define technology and processes, how they integrate, and then you need to focus on change management. That was the starting point of the journey. But if you want to do this in a larger context, for example, in an organization with 1,000 plus employees, you don't have enough time to actually convince every single one of them. So you will actually start with something you know, processes and technology. You will actually communicate the benefit of those new processes, but you will meet resistance in the field, like operations. And when you leave the room, you will have the feeling of, okay, someone is closing down the software after you have left. And when you come again, you ask them, okay, how did it go? Sorry, we didn't have time. This is maybe some experience you can share. And that was the point where I asked myself, why is there so much resistance in the game. So how could you actually motivate those people? And in 2018, I just started the new project. We had an international group of people from all around the world, from all other countries, collected in one room, and we were starting to assemble these guys for the core team. And this was the point where we started talking with the psychologist, with David, how we could apply actually some models like BIM to select the right composition of the team. And that was the first day where we focused on that. If you go into the psychology of change, this is something we are preparing right now. We have a lot of emails requesting those courses, but due to Corona, we cannot give these workshops anymore. So we have to focus on, okay, how do we proceed? How do we get this knowledge out of the door? Do we share it with online courses or material online? But we want to share this because it's so simple. It's the relationship of the individual to the change.
Yeah, of course. Why not? I think it's vital to do that. And it might be maybe more, even make more sense for you as like financially. It might be more profitable to do it this way. You can reach more people, more customers maybe.
Yeah, first of all, it needs to be defined all the way. Business model is there, of course. But if you focus on courses right away, I don't think this is the right approach. What we are doing right now is that we have captured all the knowledge we have, the experience we have now, and we have defined our own BIM implementation framework. 3 phases, 10 steps, and we can go through a BIM implementation starting with a lot of strategic work, strategic alignment, where you look at the company's corporate strategy, find out where the company wants to go, then define a good BIM strategy, which can be different. We can talk about that one a little bit later, why this is so important. And then you get the commitment of the board, of the executive board, right? And from that, we can go in phase 2, where you actually assemble the team of people you need to work on the processes, to integrate the technology, and to do the pilot project. And after you have done the pilot project, the real implementation starts, where you can actually take these successfully trialed project aspects and put them into stories to actually tell them in your company, in your organization. And when you share this, all the others, they will have contact points to BIM. They will actually, they can follow the projects, right? They can actually learn about how BIM works through storytelling, through videos you can provide on the intranet. You can build interest in terms of that other early adopters get in contact with you, asking for help and support in their first project, right? And this is where you build the foundation, where you actually grow the interest in the company, where you do a lot of things to create the awareness you need, to get the desire you need, to give them knowledge. And then it's, working with the early adopters and building the platform with the train-the-trainer concept.
Okay, I understand. Can you give some examples of tasks or how exactly the psychologist is involved in this process or in these processes? Does he go in the direct contact with the clients as well, or it only helps to shape how you implement the strategy?
Both. It's not that we actually do psychological assessments, right? It's not that everyone needs to go to the shrink and gets evaluated. It's more or less that it's happening in the background. So if you are assembling a team, you always be there with more than you are more than just you, right? You go in with him. He's part of the team, and we get smarter and smarter every day, every time we do this. But he has knowledge in regards to the different characteristics of the people we need. If you look up BIM, for example, this is the methodology where you have 9 different types of people, from the strategist to the doer, to the maker, to different kinds of aspects in the team you need You need to have the specialists who can focus on details. You will need to have the guys who actually translate this into doing, right? People who know the processes well enough and understand the problems and the implications of the adjustments you do. And this is something you can actually identify early on in the beginning. Team building is a very important part as well, where you need to actually, if you want to work with a team intensively over the next couple of years, you need to assemble this team, right? And this is where also a lot of knowledge from the psychology of change comes in, where the psychologist is definitely a person you have in our team, where we go to the customer and assemble those teams, look at the processes, define a strategy, how to bring this into the organization. And this is actually the hardest part, is phase 3. After you have done the first project, when you do all the selected project, the second one, the third one, the fourth one, how do you communicate this into your organization? It's not that you use psychological tricks, but it's more or less like that you get a better, or that I do get a better understanding of where they are located. Are they more resistant to the change, or do they have an active relationship to the change? To define different strategies in the background in terms of how you communicate, what kind of storylines you create of content to actually define this relationship in favor for change.
Yeah. This is fascinating for me, and very out of the box, if you can put it that way, because we don't have these roles in our industry traditionally, right? And I'm thinking, like, isn't that that definitely it is. How big of a challenge is that to explain, like, to a customer or a client, to sell this? Like, you must sell, you must sell this, right? You must involve in order to have to implement the best strategy you can come up with. Like, you need the help from the psychologist, and you need to sell that, right? The customers, they must believe in that and must pay for that, right? How do they perceive this when they hear that your team has a psychologist? Isn't a lot of resistance for this when you deal with this with the customers?
It's not one of the bigger selling points. It's not that we go in and say, okay, our unique selling proposition is that we have a psychologist on the team. We have this in terms of that we say our implementation framework, the one we use, the one which will be published soon, is actually what we assume as our best practice, how to implement BIM in the construction industry. It's developed over a couple of years with a lot of BIM implementations in the back. It's addressing a lot of problems, and the knowledge, the psychology of change is derived from those problems, right? That I had questions in regards to, okay, how do we address this, right? Also, how could we actually enhance the relationship of the early majority? Right. I don't know if you know the technology
Yes.
life cycle. This is something you see often on the screens of presentations nowadays. But the question is, what is differentiating the early adopters from the early majority? Right? What are the characteristics? What's happening in their heads? So the first question we articulated was, how do individuals and organizations react to change? We know that some people are reacting with open resistance, but there are other people doing this in a guerrilla style, like silent underground resistance, right? And there are definitely people who are looking for solutions to their problems. They want to solve this, and this is something you can observe in the organization in real life, right? And to better understand that it's the relationship you have to work with, that you get to the point where you have an early adopter and you can motivate him to do this, but that it's not important to focus on a laggard or late majority or early majority, because we know they are not taking risks. They want to have social proof. They want to feel secure that what they do is the right way, right? They don't want to fail, right? Because it's happening under a lot of stress and responsibility. So these are the points where we designed actually something which we are really proud of. This is called the topic Psychology of Change. And the second one is the model of exponential transformation. So we know that stories have an impact, right? If you, when you were a child, maybe your mother or your parents read tales to you, and they have messages, right? And what you can do is actually you can synthesize behaviors, you can synthesize values, best practice, knowledge, facts, information, so on, into stories. And we are not taking stories as something fictional, but more from a journalistic point of view. And you can craft these stories, you can craft behaviors. This is something what we call the story. And you can share this story in your internal networks. You have the official networks, your organization is structure, you and the department you're working in, your boss, and then the leaders over him. So this is the organizational structure. This is officially. But you also have informal social networks. The guys you do lunch with, the guys you talk at the coffee machine, the guys you meet after work, right? And they share information. If you want it or not, you cannot control communication, but you can actually put something into the communication cycles, like good stories, like these success projects we were talking about all the time, right? And if you have crafted those well, you have different storylines. For example, this strategy, right? Why do we need to do this change? What does it mean for us as a company? How does this align with the overall strategy that you want to focus on? You are working for Norwegian, right? And Afri, right? So Afri and Norwegian, they have a specific point of view how they want to do BIM, in what kind of context they want to do BIM, what kind of BIM does make sense, right? And this does not mean it makes the same sense for a different company like Implenia, Peab, NCC, Skanska, or so on. So you have to have the right stories to explain why this is, right? And you can do the other one, the hard work, when you after you received your mandate and you have to have BIM implemented, and you're crafting all your internal processes and integrate this with technology. What kind of benefit does technology bring, and so on, and the hard work to do the pilot project. You can communicate this, you can put this into stories, and promised, if you do this in video like you do now with your podcast, you reach more people than you do with a text article on the internet, right? In good times, this article was read 80 times or so, but the video blog right before Christmas was clicked hundreds of times, thousands even, because everyone was interested. It was easy to consume. It had a simple message, and it's like documentation or Netflix, YouTube. You do this to relax, to get together information in an easy way. And this is what we are using in the model of exponential transformation, that you have this synthesis of content. You're putting this into stories like behaviors, values, best practice, and so on. And you can share this in the network. And if you are a company, an organization who does not have a lot of experience in sharing information, you can even do fire drills, how to share information, and train this capability in your organization to share. And this will actually lead to that someone who's a laggard or a late majority does not mean that they are laggard and late majority when it comes to video content or iPhone or electrical cars, or right? This means that in terms of BIM, they are maybe old school because they feel insecure with software which is not stable enough, right? And this is something you can use. And this is everything combined, my knowledge from all these BIM implementations and struggling and reading and finding out and trying something else, to the point where I addressed this and said, okay, we need to have a psychologist in the team who can actually explain to me why this is happening. And this was the point where all the coffee breaks became hilarious and interesting, and yeah, something derived from that. Psychology of change in the model of exponential transformation, something which is a structured way to take information into the organization, to change the behavior, the reaction to change. And you cannot speed it up, but at least you can give them what they need to take the next step towards the change.
Wow.
And this is what we do. And the experience is that you gain speed. And it's a lot of fun to see that information is shared, that they are deriving superheroes from that.
That's so nice to hear.
The guys, the first ones who did the projects, it's not that you just communicate the good stuff, right? We used this and we found 200 clashes between and so on, but it was also so, now this process stagnates. We don't know how to proceed further. It's also the ups and downs. But in the end, you come out with a success story and everyone took part of this, and you also, can transport a lot of culture. How does the company, focus on change? How do they support me when I do the first project, right? Everything you can put into there, and you can, speed up and your transformation. This is actually quite interesting.
Yeah, this sounds very exciting. It's something that I'm still shocked that I did not hear about this any talks before. I guess there are not many companies that are doing this, so maybe that's why. But it's good that somebody saw the missing link here and tried to do something. And I'm glad that you are doing, and you managed to make a business out of this. It's very important.
Yeah, we are actually asked from our customers to help them to do these implementations, right? So if you compare, for example, Germany with Norway. In Norway, the whole journey started in 2008. And by 2011, it was the question, okay, which of the 5 contractors is capable of doing BIM, right? To take this further downstream. And this is where I joined PIAP that time and worked on that front. And in Germany, it's different. BIM didn't face the earth before 2014 due to a couple of projects in the publicity, and now the adoption is increasing, right? But we are still there where we were 2011 in Norway, that companies approach BIM, they try to find out, they trial and error, they are looking around, they're learning faster because it's existing, they can adopt. But still, BIM is not that common. In Norway, I at least have the impression that a lot of projects are BIMmed in various maturity levels, right? A lot of prefabrication approaches, they are done due to BIM, because you can communicate and gather everyone and coordinate the models and so on. This is not very common here, and the market is also a lot bigger here in Germany. So the companies who approach us, they have clear vision. They know that they have tried BIM now for 2 to 3 years. It's often a bottom-up initiative, and now they need to focus. Now they are asking themselves, okay, why doesn't it bring this promised return on invest? And this is the point where we can jump in, because the other topic is the strategic anchoring of BIM in the company's strategy, right? And if you do this right, if you have, for example, a construction company focusing on risk management or operational excellence, this is a totally different approach and BIM strategy, because then you would probably focus on BIM in the as a cost estimation process, where you focus on model-derived quantities and a better understanding of the building in the tender project and so on. As if you say, okay, we are focusing, for example, on modularization and prefabrication and virtual design and construction in these terms, right? Because they will have a different approach. They also do BIM design, but they do it with a different angle, right? Modular, also building up modules out of the and so on. Another one who's focusing on tact-based planning, location-based planning, and so on. They will maybe focus more on 4D, 5D, work phase planning, advanced work packaging, and so on. So all these different aspects right, can bring up different BIM strategies in those 3 construction companies. And if you do this right, the board will understand the strategic value of BIM, right? Because it's an enabler for a lot of things. Better understanding derives from visualization. More exact quantities, for example, derive from a model-based quantity estimation.
Yes.
Right? Better design derives from, and so on. So they will have, actually see the strategic value in the opposite of just a return on investment. How much do we spend and what do we earn? So this is another one. So this is why they are contacting us, and in phase 3 and 2, they see the benefit of the model of exponential transformation and the better understanding of change management.
I have an issue with that thing you just said about them thinking about that how much did they save after doing this 2 or 3 years. Because I know what the issue is there. They did not do it. They did not commit it 100%. They just tried to do it. And they were not invested 100% one. And
Exactly.
they did not understood how to do it in the first place. That's the reason they failed. This is the biggest leap maybe that happened in Norway right now. Like the biggest customers, clients, the national agencies, public road administration, railroad administration, and Statsbygg, Statens vegvesen, Bane NOR, all of this, Neveier, have understood the value in it. And they are the pushovers. They are the ones pushing everybody else with the requirements they have on their projects. Like, it's very difficult if you wait for a contractor to build a project with the most advanced technology. It makes no sense if you require him to do it in the old way. He wants to make more money from it, right? He won't earn more money if you don't have a contract that gives you that, like an IPD, right? Or something else. So it would be very difficult. It must come from the client. And if the client is not doing it, and if they just try, like they see some marketing solution, they employ Revit on their workflow or Solibri, and they say they use BIM on their project. That's nonsense. That's nonsense. They don't understand the scope.
So what you say is you need to have the right BIM requirements from the owner.
Yeah, from the owner, from the client,
client. Yeah. Okay, let's jump in there, because I think this is a pretty interesting discussion. Of course, I'm with you. If you're focused on BIM projects, right? Someone needs to come up with BIM uses, right? Why do you want to use BIM?
Exactly.
We know the problems. We know that the BIM execution plan, execution plan in the beginning is packed full of requirements, right? We want to have the as-built model for the facility management later on. So this is dictating that we need LOD 500, LOI 500, and so on. We need to have this, right? I'm with you there, but now the angling comes. This needs to be differentiated due to the timeline. In the beginning, you don't need to have FDV or facility management information. In the beginning, it's all about design and design coordination and do the right designs, right? In the second step, it's maybe about workforce planning and how you want to execute this on the construction side, and then you need more information due to the. So in the first, as a BIM manual of Statsbygg, this was the table where you said, okay, who needs to deliver what and when, right? In version 1.2, and that was great because it gave us some understanding of the BIM use dictate what kind of BIM requirements you will need to have in the right stage, right? If you Google multi-consult gjennomføringsmodell, then you will actually see that you can visualize it pretty well, that you have to have all these engineering packages, these work packages. You need to align them, that they make sense, that you don't do things twice and 3 times and so on, and that you can go through stages, that you have an early preliminary design, which will be coordinated in the design team with all the disciplines, and that you then actually come up with one solution which will be detailed afterwards. So first they are actually they are coordinated in all the disciplines, right? And then after this has been done, it will be detailed, and then it's locked for production, right? And this is something you will see when you focus on BIM projects. So if you have a client or a building owner who wants to do BIM in their project, I call it the BIM project. And if you want to work as a company, if you want to work with those kind of customers, clients, owners, then this is part of your company strategy, because then as a customer perspective, you will put all your clients as Bane Noor or the other ones, Nye Veier or your
Statsbygg
or Statsbygg. Yes, you put them in the column, and then you need to have the internal processes to deliver what they want, right? Okay, but on the other hand, if you are a company, and for example, the majority of buildings is not built by the large netting segment, but they are built. Every single house around could be BIMmed, right? But then the contractor would need to understand the benefit of BIM in his company.
Exactly.
Right? Because the customer says, okay, yeah, I don't want to pay extra. I just want to have the house, right? And I don't know your processes, so I cannot actually sit down and describe the BIM requirements you need to fulfill. But okay, if you give me something I can look at on my iPad, I see the value. If I can coordinate this myself and furnish it or put the light switches where I want to have them and check if the door is opening in the right corner and so on, I can actually list tons of things where the customer would say, yes, please, right? Or that you take it from an internal perspective. If you could do more prefabrication on your yard, right, to do this and put this on a trailer and drive this to the construction site and just train it to the place where it needs to be, you will be much faster, the quality will rise, and so on. So if you're focusing on this kind, then you have your BIM strategy. So I earlier was talking about a company internal perspective from the board, from the management to say, okay, we want to focus on these areas. So let's find out how BIM and Lean is actually contributing to those perspectives. And then let's find out what kind of strategic value BIM brings or Lean construction brings to the table, right? And suddenly you will see that, okay, if we build 200 houses of the same kind, how could we do this in the best possible way, that we have continuous improvement processes, that we have work packages, that we can track performance, that we can enhance all materials and so on and so on. So this would not derive from a project requirement. This would need to come from an internal perspective, right? And this is something we do. So we go in small, medium, large size companies. For the last 18 months, I worked for a global company, did a program with 150 single implementations.
Wow.
All the countries and so on. And this is not happening because you have 150 single initiatives, but they are combined in some way to say, okay, this is what we need, this is what we want to do, and this is a strategic initiative.
Yes.
So this is where the internal perspective is meeting and overlapping with the external perspective, right? Market and own interest, they overlap. So if you do not work with customers, it might not make sense for you. If you have 2,000 customers a year, and everyone is coming with a garage, I don't know if it makes sense to implement BIM full size. But if you do one project over the next 10 years, which actually is a bridge and so on, it might make sense to go fully in and model every rebar.
Of course.
Right? And have a logistic chain behind it. But it needs to be integrated. Otherwise, it's just fancy.
Yes.
Right? It cannot just be the reinforcement drawing or the list of reinforcement. There must be a benefit after all.
Yeah.
So this is what I call where you tie in the BIM initiative, the BIM thing into the into the company strategy, into the strategy map.
Yeah, well, I completely agree with that. But I'm saying, like, I know every stakeholder across the supply chain need to have a strategy,
Yes.
BIM strategy in the organization. I'm completely aware about that. What I was trying to say is that the client can move the needle quickest with the requirements, because the other ones doesn't have so much incentive if they don't discover. Most of the constructors or the designers will employ, will try to deliver what the client is requiring, right? So maybe you have one or two that are more interested in new technology, want to digitalize quicker, but most are not doing that. So from this perspective, of course, this should be like the new normal. Like, everybody should have in place a BIM strategy. How do they approach each project and everything, right? How do they deal with other stakeholders across the supply chain? But I was thinking only from this perspective that that the process or the culture, the cultural shift, it's happening quicker if the client understands first this and try to test it on different projects, in pilot projects and such.
Yeah. But this is also very difficult, because you came to Germany in 2012, right?
In Norway in 13.
This was the time where the discussion started. What is a digital delivery? Okay, so exactly this is happening in different countries right now, because you have some pretty advanced clients. They know what they want, but the market needs to be ready for that. So if you want to start your project and you have your project stakeholders, you have your engineers, you have your architects, you have all these relations, then you need to bring them up to speed and say, okay, I want to do this the BIM way, right? With IPD or how you call it, right? We had these customers in 2017. It was a project which was well suited for the BIM approach, and the architect needed to adopt BIM quickly to deliver an architectural model which could be used for all these different purposes, right? Sustainability analysis, in communication with, for example, with the structural engineers. Then you had some things like asbestos in the old building, because it was partly built on existing architecture. So we used it for this as well, to determine quantities from it, to do work phase planning and so on, right? But everyone needs to be on board. And if you have, for example, a very regulated market, as we have in Germany right now, the question is, okay, how do we deal with these special chapters, right? So normally you have in Germany, you have a regulatory system where you say, okay, if you want to do this in phase 1, you have phase 2, you have phase 3 and 4 and 5, and the content, what's being done, what's part of this step, this phase is defined. And there's also, how to say, a system related to that, which states, okay, and this makes so and so much fee for this in percent, right? So if you come up now with a totally new process, it's yet not just the technology, right? It's not just that we just Revit to the project or Solibro or Navisworks or whatever. It's that the processes are changing as well. Design coordination is one part, right? So you could proceed the old process and just say, okay, now we do design coordination, but suddenly you read something about integrated concurrent engineering and say, okay, this naturally makes sense. Let's try this, right? And suddenly everything is head down. Everything is new. How do you deal with it? And then suddenly design costs go through the roof. And you have to have iterations, and with knowledge comes decisions, and then you start from scratch because you see, okay, this does not make sense. So you have 2 times, 3 times, 4 times iterations. And so how do you deal with it, right? The technology is there, the processes are known, but there is not, there are not many markets already which understand the implications of BIM processes to the whole business model.
Yes, exactly. And the thing actually about the design part, that should not be a problem since design cost is around 10% of the project. Yeah, you need to be prepared for that as a client. You need to have more to put more of the bigger percent of the project for the design, but you are going to save much more on the site because you are going to avoid clashes. You are going to avoid to have conflicts there, right? And we know that.
Yeah. Can we talk about exactly this one? This is interesting because now we come back to the return on investment or strategic value, right? If you do everything right and you take the McLeamy curves seriously and you have the front loading and so on, you have to have the right ecosystem around you. You cannot do this in any environment. You have to have the specific environment, right? Because, of course, if you have a better designed project, construction will be more efficient. But if you are still on old contracting models, who will benefit then? Is it the owner or is it the contractor?
No,
or
the owner loses most. The owner is paying for everything, for all this nonsense. That's why I'm saying that this should be the first reason why the owner should want to digitize and to employ BIM, because they are going to save the money. They are paying everybody else involved in the process. They pay the guy with the materials, they pay the designer, they pay the constructor, right? They are the only one having money here. They are coming with the money, right? So they should be, but the problem there is like they are not the most educated ones in this. They don't know better. Most of them don't know it can be done better, in a better way, you know? That's a problem. And who do they ask for?
I think my point was that with BIM, new BIM technology and new BIM processes, you also have to look on the contracting models, right? How do you want to do this whole project? And I think if you have a look on different markets, you will see that you have different models there. And you have also a shift in how this is done, right? In Australia, for example, they have alliancing. In the UK, I think as well, in the Commonwealth. In the American markets, you call this partnering, right? In Germany, you call this IPD, and so on. So these are aspects putting the finger to the problem, right? That that it needs to be a more integrated design process, right? We want to, as we know all these benefits now that a model increases understanding, and if you put different models together, you have a coordination model where you can identify clashes and do much more design on that one, take better informed decisions, and increase the whole quality of the building. Right?
Exactly.
This is not something set in question, but the question is, if you implement BIM partially, do you have still a positive impact on the project, or doesn't it make sense because you are missing a lot of other parts?
But what does that mean, to employ BIM partially? I don't. That makes no sense.
If you start a typical project with a typical timeline and the typical sequence of traits and disciplines, then it does not make a huge impact. So if the architect is starting, and then after a couple of months and so on, the structural engineer comes in, and when they are finished and have coordinated everything, the technical disciplines appear, and they need to work what they get, right? And this is not making sense. So this is why we came to a more integrated design process, where we said, okay, everyone involved in this project needs to be involved from the start.
Exactly.
You can do a much faster early design, which is more integrated, where you can make the decisions early. How much space do we need between ceiling and slab? How much space do we need in the shafts? Where do we put the technical rooms? What kind of, and so on, right? This can be done in an integrated design process.
Yes, I completely agree with that.
But if you just apply it partially and say, okay, now we do it with BIM, the architect needs to model it either way, because he needs to derive drawings from a program, computer program, like Archicad and Revit, and he has the model, so you're doing it anyway, right? But suddenly you request them to actually publish a model every week and be part of a coordination hearing every week. This is not part of a typical contract, right? So suddenly you see contracts appearing that the contractor is taking a bigger role in the process, because the owner, the clients, they say, okay, if you want to have this, our experience from our research is that if you go to the contractor directly and let him do everything, he knows best what he wants, what he needs to build. He can understand us much better because he's building it in the end. So if we are in contact with him directly, there are certain benefits, right? Or the other ones say, okay, the complexity of this building is so high that it's not the contractor, but the general planner. So then they go to the typical ones and give them actually the contract to design the whole hospital, right? And this is engineered down to the last screw, and then it's a main contract where you just put the drawings on the table and say, okay, what does it cost to build? So these projects, they need to focus on the right aspects, right? So if you are a contractor and you have calculated that you want to build this in prefabricated wood elements, this school, right? And you do it in a typical way, then you suddenly recognize that, okay, if we want to order this from the factory in time, then we need to actually come up with all the openings, all the voids in the structural elements early, because we need to actually calculate those walls. So they need to be in there very quickly.
Exactly.
And suddenly you understand that the technical disciplines need to be in place much earlier.
Yep.
And this suddenly, what I said earlier, puts everything upside down, right? This is the front loading, which cannot be done in common context. This needs to be done in a BIM context, in a BIM project context.
All this, like, we can talk about only about this topic, like possibilities. It might work or it might not work. Days, I'm sure about that. Like, if we ask around, then we can talk with people like a lot on this topic. But I will say, I will try to finish this topic with one thing. Like, if in Norway, this doesn't exist almost anymore. Like, I'm talking about the big important projects. Like, all the important players are not talking about this anymore, and everybody else complies. So, and I take this a step further, and I'm saying, like, if it's possible in a country, a small country can do this, it makes no sense that should not be possible to do it in another country as well. You need to scale it, of course. It's going to be more challenging, I'm sure. But take a look at those guys. How did they do it? Why is working there? Why should not work on a part of a country, on my country, if that is working there? And are they losing money? Because most of the projects are saving lots of money. But they are 100% in this. They are not doing it halfway. Or, we use Revit to generate drawings later. You know, this
is an interesting question. Yeah. This is something I need to I need to research a little bit more. What the volumes of BIM projects are compared to the Norwegian market. So of course, if you have different markets and you take the awareness of BIM and the desire to use BIM and the knowledge to use BIM as the foundation, right? Then you have a saturation in a very high diffusion of BIM in the Norwegian market, of course, right? But this journey started in I don't know. And at least what I know with the bigger projects in 2008.
Yes.
Right. So we are looking back 12 years now, and we can say, okay, we have come far.
Yeah. But there were no models.
It's not that it's not existing in Germany. I'm pretty sure that there are certain players, and I know them already. They have great experience. They're doing projects in the BIM methodology. This is not that is not existing, and there are owners and architects and engineers and construction companies which are using this approach for years, for decades now. It's not that it's not existing, right? But from the awareness level, BIM is not that common yet. right? Because we have so many projects which have been started years ago without that focus. So it's not that in Norway, it's a great market. I love this, that you have DKT conference where the industry is meeting. It's not that everyone is anyone is missing. You meet up there, and the same gang is meeting up with the Building Smart yearly conference as well, annual conference, and you have certain contact points in the industry, and there's a lot of knowledge exchange and collaborations, and even the EBA as one of the forums, right? There's a lot of knowledge exchange. It's not that everyone is hoarding information and trying to protect the competitive advantage. It's something like, okay, it's not mature yet. We are trying and failing, and you do the same. Let's try to do some knowledge exchange here, right?
Exactly. And that
it's
is not
happening
only
everywhere.
Yeah, but that is not happening only at the country level. Like you say, what I'm doing here, they are also willing to share with the world. And
yes, of course.
this is what I want my podcast to be. Part of its mission is this, to be a platform of good examples. And people are very exciting to be a part of this.
This is interesting. I think this is the right way to do it, and I want to join you. We just decided a couple of weeks ago that we want to share our knowledge in regards to the BIM implementation, right? So we came up with the domain name implementationframework.com, and this is not rettbergconsulting.com, right? It's an own content hub where we want to actually put our implementation framework first, where you can go, where you can download it, where it's the space where you find more information about the psychology of change, where you find more about this communication model we talked about with storytelling. What is a good story? What's the pattern, and so on? How do you share it, and so on? This will be the content hub.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah, and this, but this takes time, right? We need to sit down. We need to actually synthesize everything we've done, because if you are doing it in a context of a company, then it appears in front of your eyes. This kind of project, we are doing this and that. If you want to do it more generally, we need to put it. We finished the German draft now for the 10 steps through the implementation framework, right? This gets online latest this week. I'm dreaming of it already. I cannot sleep anymore. I want to bring this out there, right? Because I want to tell people, sit down, do your homework, define a good strategy which ties into the company strategy, that you get the resources, the budget, the support, the commitment of the board, right? And then start with what you can. You know the processes, you know technology better than everyone else. I cannot help you there, but when you select the people, try to think about this one, that, that. And in the third phase, here it gets down to business, right? This is where David comes into the picture with the psychology of change, explaining what to do, right? Why this is important, right? And this is what we want to share. This is not a business model from the start. Maybe it derives from there, but we want to share. And this is the same you do with your podcast. This is the same what BIM Corner does with all the terrific knowledge, right? And Norway is ahead. We have knowledge, we have experience, we have, best practice, which can be shared with the world, right? And this is so important, because what I see is you always have this tunnel view where you just see your own market and this does not make sense yet. There are no owners paying for this, or there is no market for that, and so on. But globally, it's growing exponentially. Right? See how far everyone got with VDC mentoring, right? In 2011, it was something like just a few were in Stanford, and they were some evangelists coming back and talking about VDC and ICE, and Veidekke stood on the stage and told to everyone, this is the way to go, right? And then it took almost 3 to 4 years before the others, the second wave of companies went over to Stanford, right?
Last year it was a wave of over 100 people.
Yes, and then the others they adopted it over and over again. And me myself, I was there in 14 or so. Yes, 14, and we used it in a couple of projects and so on. But now, last year, with all the mentors globally, with all the exchange, it's really accelerating, right? And this is what we need, right? We need to have a pure view on the thesis, the models, the definitions, right? It was something like everyone was doing VDC, but no one did VDC because no one took the literature literally, right? But now we can improve those theses, those elements over and over, that it increases very lot, right?
Yes.
And this brings more maturity into the market so that we reach the maturity which is required to define this as early majority capable, right? They are risk averse. They don't take any risks. They ask for social proof. They ask for stable processes. It's not like, okay, we can try this. No. Tell me exactly what I need to do. Who's using this? What kind of benefits do they have? Can I talk to someone? What kind of experience do they have? Psychology again, right? And this is the point. You need to come up to the certain level of maturity before you can introduce this to the next spectrum in the life cycle.
Yeah. And exactly that's why it's very important to go out there. Put it out there. What can you do regarding this? Because you will help to raise awareness and the level of knowledge of this, right? And what is happening then is something miraculously happening, right? All the resistance is melting away when the level of knowledge increases in a domain. Like the resistance almost disappears. Like I see now, like I said, these talks have been like a few years ago in Norway, some resistance. Now, like at high level, nobody is talking about that anymore. We don't talk like if we should. We just talk about what is the best way to implement it. So yes, it's very important. Like people needs to know that. That's why I think this is very important. Needs to know that there are places where this is working, because there are many people that have no clue about this. They believe that this is going to happen in 10 years or something. But in Norway, like I heard somebody says that has been already built over 100 projects without drawings. How many of those, over 100 projects have been built in Norway without drawings?
Drawings without in VAMA 12 or
no, without paper drawings, like no drawings, only with the BIM model, using BIM kiosks and mobile and tablets. No drawings have been generated for this, and this is very important. Why? Because to make drawings, it takes much more time than the model.
Yeah, no, I get this. This is also a strategic point. If you really want to increase efficiency in the design process, you need to ask what's the value of drawings, right? And the work of creating those and taking those to the next level. But okay, interesting.
And not only that,
I knew about the first projects. I knew there was a handful, but I didn't know there was 100. So
yes, we crossed that mark. And not only that, like I said, like Bane Nur, Statens starts big. Most of their, I cannot say if it's all.
Okay, infrastructure projects.
Most of them are requiring only this approach. No,
yeah, but this is also interesting, right? When I started with infrastructure projects a couple of years ago in 14, I was surprised. I was coming from high-rise construction and so on.
Yeah,
right?
buildings.
And buildings, right? So we were talking about BIM, BIM files like IFC standards and BCF and Solibri and Revit and so on. And then I started in these infrastructure projects, and suddenly it was more about CUF files and DWGs again, and it was something like, what are you doing there? And suddenly I understood that, wow, they're doing pretty amazing stuff with this because they have the surveying engineers included in those processes. A lot of concrete structure is done by those surveyors, right? They set out the points, they do all the work, they are taking the coordinates after that again as the as-built information, and suddenly V770 appeared, and it was something like, okay, this is a totally different approach to the same topic, right? So two worlds, right, existing so close beside each other, but they are doing totally different stuff, right? And they have both high maturity levels. They talk about the same stuff, but they cannot agree because it's different file formats.
Different
right?
approaches.
Because you don't have those geometry as those classes or categories and so on, right? This is amazing. So knowledge transfer between those definitely is required to do the next step, and definitely then you have a lot of drawingless projects.
Yeah, and you know why is this important? First, not only from a perspective like how much time it takes to design, but how smart is the data you produce, right? Like
Yes.
if a 3D model is much easier to use further in the facility management, right? If it has the right data, of course, you need to take that into account. You need to put the data that you can use for facility management, of course. But the drawings, what you do with them? You just scan them and have them as PDF. That is not smart data. That is, like, you need to employ much more resources to find out how to use that. It's much easier with the 3D model. And regarding the fence or the differences between the infrastructure and the buildings authorities here, actually this year they started to work a lot together. Actually this year Banenor started to work with Statsbygg to learn from each other and to implement the same requirements that Statsbygg is doing, because Statsbygg had the most advanced requirements, and now there is a very good cooperation between all these agencies. And recently Banenor has released Krav til informasjonsmodellering, requirements for BIM modeling, which is going to be on a huge project, which is a very, very detailed requirement for the deliverance for the BIM model, right? So, and they don't plan to use that just to make some renderings from that. No, they plan to use it for facility management as well. So it's really nice. It's really, really nice seeing this. I will like in the future I will address this. This is something I will work a lot on with to try to put out as much as possible from these initiatives. Maybe somebody will be interested to learn more about it. We talked too much about this, but I did not ask you what is BIM for you. Let's do that before I forget to ask you about that.
Yeah, BIM is more or less a synonym for a lot of change in the construction industry, starting from BIM technology, more integrated processes, something we call BIM now, and it's even a strategy or ability to define new business models. When you take it from a definition point of view, definitely you can go with all those definitions that it needs to be the process we need to do better quality in time delivery, in budget delivery, more operational excellence. On the other hand, it's a lot of technology, software, file formats, file exchange, collaboration on a technical level. It's a lot of different stuff, and this is also not making it easier. Right? Everyone has read about BIM somehow, and there are different perspectives on the same topic.
Yeah.
So when we define it, we have how to say, a model where we say, okay, it's strategy, process, and technology, and then you put brackets on this diagram, on this Venn diagram, and then you put people. So you have the content, the thing you are talking about, strategy, process, technology, and then you have the change management involved with everything.
Yeah, that sounds good.
And this is our level, because if you want to carry this again, if you want to carry this into your organization or into the project or into the market, you need to do a lot of convincing. Right? You have to tell all those success stories. You have to tell the whole journey from when we started and failed and tried again and worked hard and redefined, and suddenly we came up with a lot of experience and something what works, right? And this is what people want to actually hear. This is what they need to actually readjust their positioning in terms of BIM.
Yeah.
And when a certain diffusion is met, then the early majority is also taking this into account, right? And then you get a lot of traction, a lot of adoption, a lot of talk about this. And this is much simpler in a smaller market like Norway, as you will have it and meet it in Germany, for example, right? But a lot of awareness is done, and this is really interesting. So you have a lot of conferences right now, a lot of seminars, workshops, but COVID doesn't help, right? So yeah, we need to find out how we deal with this one.
Yeah, you need to move it to the online a lot, because it's what happened with many other things. Yeah, people have had it as a challenge at the start, but now we start to get used to it, because we don't know when this is going to end, right? So
yes,
we have the technology there to use it. So it's only up to us to just tap into it and use it, right?
Yeah.
Regarding adoption of BIM strategy, do really all the companies involved in the AEC industry need a BIM strategy?
Do you need a company strategy? Yes, of course. You need to have a goal. You need, or you need to have a vision at least, and you need to focus on breaking down this vision into different perspectives. What we have seen is, even though there might not be officially articulated strategy, there is a lot of strategic thinking, and management often has a goal to meet. And then the question arises, how can BIM support to meet those goals? Right? If you are a company focusing on that every strategic initiative has to have positive impact on financial performance, then you really have to sit down and try to craft your BIM strategy that this is true. Otherwise, you don't get funding for the next round. And this is not different than entrepreneurial startup, right? If you play around 3 years and don't come up with a solution to actually monetize BIM in your company's business model, then you have a problem, right? So if you're doing more and more BIM projects and go out with a loss because you have spent double as much time but didn't earn a dime more, then you have a problem, right? So it needs to be strategic aligned at least. And if you are a bigger organization and you have different initiatives like the VDC initiative and Lean initiative and Operational Excellence initiative and international purchasing of things and so on, all these initiatives, they need to have an alignment as well, right? So we are talking about medium-sized and large organizations. They definitely have a strategic, as business strategy. And BIM needs to tie into those strategies. Otherwise, it's just, okay, we need to do this, just get it done. And then it's reduced to operational topic. It's something like, okay, engineering does BIM now. Do it, right? Do it. But this does not help, right? This is not enforced by management. This is not lived by management. This is just, okay, do it. We need to do this, right? If you want to work with BIM, you have to come up with something, right? Yeah, we start with this when we get the contract.
Not good.
Right?
Short sight, and too much focus on the tools and not understanding that actually processes are going across the entire leadership chain in the company.
Yes.
It's not enough that only the engineers or the designers must do this. This needs to be understand about the project leaders, about the bosses. How does this work? You cannot do it. That's another reason why many fail. And they say they tried BIM, but they just did it at the lowest level, right? Without understanding and really implemented it.
Yeah, but this is also something, there are not that many BIM projects, even in Norway, that you can say, okay, you have a diffusion and a possibility for everyone, right? So it's like who's there first, right? If you have a limited number of projects and you start the first of those projects, then you will actually meet maybe a market which is pretty immature, right? Then you invest a lot of time and efforts into market education. And in the end of the project, you have a team of people who are pretty advanced and mature. And then you start the second project. Who do you start it with? Okay, then you say, okay, I want to work with the same team because they have a high maturity. They know what they do, right? But they maybe have different projects now. So you have to do it all over again, right? You start with a new team, you have to build up the same competencies, you have to raise maturity through adoption here and so on. So you're starting over and over and over again, right? But there are not that many projects that everyone can be part of a BIM project. So you will actually define a group of people which are pretty advanced and some who fall behind. And then there will be a gap in between. And then you need to have someone who tries to close the gap again, like Statsbygg, who said, okay, we don't leave anyone behind, right? Or how to say, governance that you try to come up with some political steps to actually enable the whole market. And then you come to a maturity, which is actually average, right? Where you can say, okay, everyone can BIM somehow, has been part of something. And this is often started in the bigger companies like AECO, COVID.
I understand. If I may ask, how much is used ISO 9650 in Germany? How much are you using the guidelines from there with what you do?
For many, it's still new. I think many have waited until it was regulated so long, and now there is more attention on that. We see a lot of more invitations to webinars and meetups talking about this. And this is important because it gives some more, how to say, official focus on this one. It's not unregulated anymore. There is a standard, right? But I cannot see an immediate impact now. Those who did it, they are aware of it. But I think it's not a driver for adoption, if you mean this.
I see. How about, let's say a company would be interested to implement a BIM strategy. Can you give some, what would be the best approach and the quickest? How should they start?
What kind of company?
Doesn't matter. You can give examples for each of them if you wish.
Go to implementationframework.com, download the guide, the ultimate guide for implementing BIM in 10 steps, and just go through the strategic alignment, the team building, the process optimization, process integration part, do your pilot project, focus on selected project, train-to-trainer concepts and storytelling, and then take it from there. There is a place for you. Implementationframework.com.
You just need to publish everything on the website before I release this episode then.
Yeah. No, this is actually, we are starting in Germany right now. We will do it in German first, but from New Year's, I promise there will be something in English as well.
Okay. I'm really looking forward to that.
Online. It's still not online yet. Yeah, we go online now today, right after this interview. And you can check it out. And we will come up with an English site as well. We just have to, because it's quite fresh, we started in October to sit down and decide that this is knowledge we sit on. We cannot do our courses and seminars as we want because they are based on, how to say, local training, right? Hands-on here. And now we have to come up how we share this knowledge anyway. And I think to do the public approach, to share something, to build up a content hub based on this knowledge and just focus on the implementation of BIM or Lean or anything else. This is really important. We didn't find anything about that. This is why we decided to share it ourselves. And I think it's a good start. And we also, we are using our own framework in day-to-day business, right? So we have improved it over the last couple of years. It started with just a sketch, and now it's really a package of existing methodology and tools and everything from strategy mapping to storytelling, right? And I know that this can be adopted. I read hundreds of books over the last 10, 12, 15 years, gaining this knowledge, and I have some experience. So we have synthesized it down, right? We needed to make this adoptable, that we can use it every time. And why not share this?
That sounds good.
I really appreciate you getting in contact with us. And it was really, as I listened to 1 or 2 episodes before this podcast now, I think it's really valuable. And I like that you said, okay, you had so many questions which can be answered by experts. This is the right approach, right? And you gain an audience. This is very important as well.
Yeah. Yeah. How can somebody contact you?
Via LinkedIn. You can go to my LinkedIn profile and you can leave me a message. This is the first thing. Definitely email mfr@rettbergconsulting.com. And we want to push the implementationframework.com. So yeah, this is important that people get there, because they will also get all the informations. And right now it's just how to say the guide. You will be able to download there. You can also actually be part of the webinar. Right now we are focusing on getting everything together in German, because it's mother tongue. And then we do a second wave where we actually translate this. So there will be content around New Year's.
Awesome. I will make sure to put all these links in the show notes, and I will specify that is going to be valid from the 2021.
It was really nice talking to you. Yeah, I really like it. So yeah.
Thank you very much.